host Nicole with my sidekick here, Tina, and our trio is off for the day, but she will be back possibly next week.
There she is. You're good. Stephanie had to take a couple days off, as she mentioned last week. Her grandmother did pass, so this is the time she's spending right now with her family to celebrate her grandmother's life, and so we wish her the best. I don't think services were today or tomorrow or one day, but I do believe she'll be back at some point this week.
Yes, the viewing I believe is today. So yes, we honor that space and time for her. And as she needs to take it. For today, we decided to open up the week talking about something that people may not even realize is in their experiences. And it's called spiritual bypassing. And we wanted to really talk about it because we want to help people to understand as well as ourselves, because I myself have been there at times unknowingly, about really understanding, are we avoiding emotions, not healing? Spirituality can become another escape. So there's just a few ways of, like, love and light can suppress truth. Like, there's a few examples that will go more into detail and kind of also look at kind of the light, the shadow, and the growth in the spiritual bypassing. Overview for this week, guys. We're gonna talk about spiritual bypassing today. And then we'll segue into Wednesday, where we will be talking about spiritual warfare, and then bringing Friday as a culmination episode and the internal. So the integration of it. Oh, I love those glasses.
Yeah, they're
Um,
blurry.
oh, well, that's a shame. So just the energy forecast for today. The themes are avoidance pattern surfacing, especially with this Pluto retrograde energy. Um, things that so be aware if your mind starts going down a drain of what ifs scenarios, being mindful there. Emotional exhaustion being real, so grounding being super important, especially this week. We're in the finality of Taurus season, and we're going to be shifting in Gemini season. Gemini season, I'm looking forward to. It's going to be more clarity in the mind, in our communication. I look forward to that.
And when's
Um,
that?
we're coming in usually what, the 25th, usually around Memorial Day, like when the
Oh, so it's
season will switch
okay.
over. Yep. So we're in the final week. We just had our new moon in Taurus. I'm so happy. I did a beautiful little ceremony on my land, and because Taurus is in my house of foundations and ancestral lineage. So I just really took that new moon energy and integrated it there, which is real beautiful, and stable, because that's what Taurus energy is about. But yeah, so the collective and individually waking up to more layers of illusions coming to the forefront, and people realizing positivity alone isn't healing. So it's almost like kind of finding a balance right now, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
the shift that we could feel is happening, the patterns that we're kind of seeing that we're like, I'll deal with later. They're kind of being right in our faces of like, no, we're going to deal with that now. And it can be exhausting, especially as a collective, if we're kind of picking up everybody's energies that are going on. So grounding super, super important. T, when we speak about the energy in spiritual bypassing, because I love that you were like, "Ooh, I really want to talk about this today." What kind of are you kind of experiencing something like that in real time or in your environment?
I'm sure. I'm sure I am. I feel like I often don't know what the hell I'm feeling until we have these discussions, and then I make the connections. Um, but I think what was is most intriguing to me is that when we start talking about what it looks like, there's certain phrases I find myself using that
Mm-hmm.
I thought were helpful, but really are just words. There's not. It doesn't change the meaning of the point in which you're trying to get across to that individual. But um, it was. I think it was one of the phrases I use all the time, everything happens for a reason, right? And then you're putting that phrase to something that's hurting or that's like painful or a change for someone else, but is that really helping the healing process? No, it's just a phrase. So I think I'm going to catch myself in this conversation with certain things and behaviors that are innate and have been for years that really are just become part of a survival strategy versus an actual way of healing.
Mm, I love it because, well, when we hear those words, like you were saying, like just saying positive, love and light, everything's just wonderful, but your world's literally burning and crashing around you. Maybe you lost a job, maybe you lost a relationship or a loved one, right? The thing about that is, and it's something that I've really embodied to understand in a new way, especially with myself and clients at this time, is that yes, those words can be very uplifting and motivating and embodying. However, we can't embody something if we haven't understood and allowed ourselves to heal through and process through the other side of it, the dark depths of the shadow, the trauma, the grief, the pain, where the pain resides. If we're just like, okay, I had this loss, it happened for a reason, I trust me at I'll be me as a psychic medium and very in tune as I am, I would really do that when my father passed. Before he passed, you know what? He's going to be out of this physical body. He won't be in pain anymore. He'll be all right. I'll see him in the spirit realm. Okay, but when you lost your father, what happened?
Yeah.
Grief from your whole life just surfaced.
Yep.
You've been sober now for some years, and now you're feeling it. We're not numbing it. So, in that, it was like everything's not okay. That's where an example I kind of resonated with spiritual bypassing is that it was unconscious. I wasn't aware that that's what I was doing. I think it was like you said, the survival pattern.
Hmm.
It was like my protection of like, because we know it will end up being okay, right? So if we can be mindful in knowing that everything is happening as it's supposed to unfold, then we can almost give ourselves that safe space to allow it to unfold. Let those emotions come up, anger, sadness, any of it.
Yeah, I think, there's two ways that I'm looking at it now that we're kind of talking about it. My favorite one would be my mother, forgive and move on. Well, what am I forgiving and how do I move on? All right, that's a nice phrase, uh, but I don't really know why I don't like that person, but there's something about them that makes me not trust them. So I don't know what I'm forgiving, so that's not helpful. And I don't know how to move on. So if I could just put the piece in the middle that's missing, that would be, the healing side of, giving me the tools to move forward. Um, and then
What
the
would
other
that look
thing I
like?
think about, and like, I use the word phrase plain language all the time because I'm just one of those people who feels like not everybody is in tune with the same vocabulary or words or, what have you. But when you think about when you fall or you get hurt and you put a band-aid on a cut or something that happened and you think, okay, let's move on. You're good. You're all bandaged up. But when you really realize it, you're still bleeding and you need stitches, right? Like you just put a cover over it to ignore what really needed to be fixed so that that wound could heal. And I think that's where most of us can easily get caught up in what spiritual bypassing does to us.
Oh, easily. I was trying to put something in the comment box and I can't find it to you, and that's what I was looking for. While you were sharing that. Well, because it would, or people would say, um, for what is it? You forgive for you, not for them. Kind of examples when you were talking about that, Mike. I had a question though, and that was like, for you, what did the process look like? Because I know how you mentioned about like, I don't know what I'm forgiving. I need this middle part. For you, what did that look like, or if it's still open, uh, that healing process to kind of give the audience an idea when we're saying bypassing rather than spiritual processing maybe is the language that wanted to come out right there, and I kind of like that. Yeah.
So I would say My intuition, I could read a room fairly well. I'll go sit next to the good energy versus the bad energy because I could get sucked into that bad energy, especially if it's us all gossip based. Because who doesn't love a great gossip conversation, right? Um, but when there is this particular individual that's vibe feels personal and more of like attacking me, and so, and I don't know why. Maybe I've said something or I did something to that person, and I've had these conversations with these people, but like it's oh no, no everything's all right, everything's fine. I don't know what you're talking about, but I could still pick up on this sense that there's something underlying. There's a tone there, and how do I forgive or forget something I don't even know what I'm supposed what am I holding on to, right? So I think when you're spiritual bypassing, you're shutting down the real feelings. You're not allowing yourself to feel whether it's grief because you lost someone, you're angry, that fear, disappointment, confusion. If you don't know how to link those to that specific event, how do you forgive and move on?
Yep.
You just can't. And I have um, I have a friend who's very into crystals, and I don't do work with crystals. I think they're great, but I just don't personally use them. And I could remember one day I was headed in for a pretty significant health test, and she handed me this crystal, and she wanted me to take it with me on my ambulance ride to a hospital. Like, what's this crystal gonna do? She's like, it's gonna help you. It's gonna send you good vibes and it's gonna protect you. I'm like, okay, so I'm holding on to this crystal really tight the entire time, thinking to myself, okay, I have some form of protection with me. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't the crystal that I needed. It was the medical attention that was necessary in that moment. But because that crystal got carried along the way, somebody tied that to the success of the procedure. Who knows? Could have been. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know crystals, but it's just funny how we all kind of react to these things differently.
Yep.
Um, and I think we do it. I'm going to go back to survival mode, right? There's times where we're just overwhelmed. Like we may not even. I can't identify feelings sometimes when my head is just spiraling. Um, and then there's those things that we were taught as kids. Negative emotions make us weak or ungrateful. Don't allow
Man.
that, right? Like don't allow that to
Woo.
come out or people to see you. You don't want to see you want people to see you so weak or at your lowest moment, right? And I'm like, well, why not? It's happening. It's a real time event. But again, it goes back to childhood beliefs. What are families? What are parents? What religion? Whatever it was that taught us. Like my favorite phrase, and I love it. And this is no bash to any religion, is give it to God. And people will say that to me all the time. I give it to God at night, and I'm like, okay, and then what? Because I mean, again, it's a belief system, so I'm not bashing it. But I've given stuff to God before, and I think it's been handed back to me a couple times with different bows. Um, so I think when in the spirituality side of things, what's been helpful for me is understanding these are the lessons that I was here to learn, to take, to try to do over, and it's I could give it to God, but God basically gave them to me before I even got here.
Yep. In my perspective, I believe that God is within.
Yep.
I will die on that hill because I believe that and know that for myself to be true. I believe that we are all co-creators with God and Mother Earth.
Hmm.
And when you were mentioning crystals, I love that because there's many people, because again, as a society, what are we educated on and what have we not been? Back to what we've been told as children and up to now, right? And when you put the psychological lens behind it, like you were, the emotional suppression that was there, it's nervous system protection. These are things that we innately just, it happens. It's not something that means that we're trying to be vindictive or purposely try to, do something. But when we have these conversations, it now becomes in your awareness. And something like crystals and all the different variances of them, they hold energy, right? They're like little energy centers that for people, you know how back in the day used to be a rabbit's foot. You don't even see those anymore, but you get it. That's my lucky's rabbit's foot or the horseshoe. If you wanted to kind of simplify it in that way, but crystals inevitably they can, when we believe that to be true, because remember, our mind doesn't know the difference. Whatever we're feeding it is what it's going to program back to us. So if I say that this selenite right here that I picked from for myself, and I'm proud of it, from Selenite Glitter Mountain, it was called. Yes, it was called Glitter Mountain. That this charges. That even as I hold it right now, I can feel myself kind of lightening up, right? So that can sound silly, but to me, that brings some comfort. So maybe the person who kind of brought that crystal to you looked at it as a way of, here's a tool, here's kind of a little bit
Absolutely.
of a shield for you when you go into
Yeah,
battle.
absolutely. True. The intentions there were truly meant with like all respect, well being, but for me, because I didn't understand it.
Right.
But like I'm gonna break it down into a different term. This is not the picture, but um, I have a picture of my mother and I when I was probably 2, sitting at my grandmother's house. When I hold that picture, it's almost like that energy from that picture moves through me too, right?
Yes,
So
you're giving.
it's not just identifying with something that it's identifying with anything that's been part of your life. So my father has dog tags. So when he passed, I wore his dog tags and his cross. And I could feel his energy that day coming through that. When we were at my mother's funeral, I had his dog tags on, his cross, and I wore her ring. And it was just the weirdest vibration for me. And again, at this point, I was not in a spiritual space,
Right.
right? I didn't understand what was happening to me, but I don't know if everybody has the same religious um, practices, but when you're Catholic and you're going into the church, the immediate family is right behind the casket, and then the rest of the family follows. Well, the day I buried my mother, I was the only one behind the casket because that was the last of my immediate family, and everybody else was behind me. And as I was walking down the aisle, I kept fidgeting with the medals, and I kept saying, "Why am I doing that?" And then I would stop, and then it would just be like I have to do it. And I think that was my way of like bringing them back to me in that moment to help me feel or get the strength that I needed to get through that day. Then we get to the casket being put in front of the altar, and I look around and I'm sitting in a pew all by myself.
Mm.
I was like, really? This is this is how, like, everybody, like my major support systems are right behind me, but I'm like, I have to sit here by myself. And that's when like the fidgeting became more, and I like started to not pay hear what the priest was saying or what was going on. I was just paying more attention to how I was feeling in that moment, just based off of wearing those forms of metal that belonged to my parents.
No spiritual bypassing there, truly, because intuition asks you to feel, and
Yeah.
that's what you were doing. No matter how, if it wasn't, that's what's so beautiful. Like love expands all planes and times of existence. So our energy, like though physically, this is just a meat suit. This is just a physical reality. But the beautiful thing about why we come here is that we come here with the knowing that we are going to not be here forever. That we come here with missions. We come here with people, soul family members that will come in for seasons, reasons, and lifetimes. And when we can kind of look at it from that perspective, we can see how much more of a purpose we all individually carry on this earth. And when we're saying about more spiritual processing than spiritual bypassing, it's more just allowing yourself, because the way that you're going to go through your process is going to be unique to you. It's going to be different than mine. It's going to be different than Tina's. It's going to be different than Stephanie's. It's going to be different than everybody's. So in that, it can become difficult if we're relying on a system or a structure that's outside of us to tell us how to handle the situation. Does that make sense?
It does, and I, I think I want to say this before I forget and
Mm-hmm.
get it lost in my head. When we are when we are in that bypass moment, we're just avoiding the pain. We're not delaying it. Like, we're delaying it in the sense that we're just pretending it's not happening, but all of
Ooh.
a sudden, because of that avoidance, it's leaking into your relationships. It's showing up in places that you really don't need it to be showing up at in those moments. There's burnout. There's, I think it probably falls into the numbness category where people say, "How do you get through things like this?" And I'm just like, "I'm just numb. Like, I'm just numb. Like, I'm accustomed to it." Where healing requires honesty, and if you're trying to avoid that healing process, you're fully taking away that opportunity um and that lens to be able to move forward in a very honest and healthy way.
Mm-hmm. Like you have to embody the experience in order to integrate it.
Right.
Because what will happen, as you were saying, I'm so glad that I have this little thing over here. It's so much easier for me to shut up and have my points when I need to come back. But because what can happen is when we're trying to quickly just heal things, again, been there, try doing my dad every day. I'm good. I'm good. I'm not even crying over. I'm past. We're good. And then Tina, I just lost my shit for 3 hours, bawling my eyes out by my father, this, that, and the other. Next minute, we're good. I get it. He's in heaven. I mean, he's around me. He's everywhere, you know? So it's one of those things, just allowing it, because what happens is, if, say, just example, I was to have my father pass the way that my mother passed, where I didn't emotionally unpack that, and I did that same experience again, full transparency, it probably would have led me back into addiction if I didn't allow myself to unpack what was happening with my father by and having people give me that space, that safe space to unpack something I didn't have when I was younger. So that was a new experience for me, in helping me to not bypass, because in all reality, you're only bypassing temporarily. And when you do that temporarily, it is just going to be a scab that is ready to just come back up again in a moment's notice. It'll
Yeah.
come right back up to the surface like a tyrant in the corner, just waiting for that vulnerable moment. And you know who's going to get the lashing? Whoever you're in front of. And it's usually probably somebody pretty close to you.
It's usually always somebody who's like right in the line of fire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what people struggle with healing is, I think it comes down to, I'm gonna just use the word pride, but like, it's okay to say I'm hurting. You're allowed to say it out loud. You're allowed to say and recognize the emotions that you're feeling. If you're hating something, hate is such a strong word. But if you're hating something in that moment, hate it and then figure out how to move on from it or work with it
Release
or
it.
change that emotion, because you don't want hate taking over any space in your body, because hate just will take over you. It will just eventually take over your entire system.
Yes.
You know, I'm getting really good at saying, why am I getting so pissed? Something something is trying to tell me why I'm getting upset about this. Like, stop and pay attention. Just shut up, sit down, and reflect. Look around, pay attention, and allow yourself to feel it. Um, and Cole, I think what you have been challenged with in the last, well, it's not has been a year, but we'll call it 6 months, is that you can hold gratitude and grief at the same time. Just because you're grieving doesn't mean you can't have those moments of gratitude where life is turning things around for you, where you're, let's use the property. That's something to be excited about, right? Have a lot of energy, excited, um, your emotions, proud. Like, these are things you didn't know that you would have one day. But in the back of your head, you could still be struggling with those emotions that are still tied to grief. Just because dad's not here anymore doesn't mean I can't live.
Right.
And
Or
that's where
living in a
people
new
get
way.
stuck.
Yes. Like there is life after.
Right.
Yep. I definitely agree with you. I think that's where people, and I at many stages of my life got stuck at, was that very much. And giving yourself, like Tina always says, grace. But a lot of this happens when we can reflect. What
Right.
am I feeling in my body right now? What are my thoughts telling me right now? What limiting beliefs are driving my experiences? These kind of reflective questions kind of help you integrate your experience rather than bypassing it for the moment. And fair enough said to say, too, if you need to in that moment for self protection or it's not the environment to spiritually process, let yourself know that as well. Say, I'm just going to put this on the shelf for later on tonight when I can get home and I can sit with it. You know what I'm saying? Like making it in a way where you're comforting yourself through those difficult experiences by, because that's where your body awareness comes from and grounding yourself. Because inevitably, when we go through these experiences, it is our child self that is needing the comfort. It's needing to be acknowledged for whatever the experience was that me, as my inner child, just experienced. I need to be comforted there. I need to be allowed to say, I'm pissed that my dad chose to not get his body healthy and chose death instead. Those were real feelings that I had. I yelled at him for abuse that I dealt with growing up and that he could have stepped in and been a better father. Now, I allowed myself all of those feelings to rise, but I didn't allow myself to stay there because I started unraveling where my father's head was at, what my father's body was feeling to him, where he was just to a point of no return, and allowing him the space to live out his life that worked best for him and shifting it back. It's so easy for us to try to bypass our own healing by trying to focus on healing everybody else, but it's a hell of a thing when you realize it's impossible to heal another person. The only thing you can do is heal yourself and become a doorway for when the person around you gets into that experience of grief and wanting support for healing.
I think too, in like the coaching space, asking certain questions makes people really uncomfortable, but you're asking questions to really truly, like, I had a moment with a client one day where I asked a very simple question, and the response she had, because she answered so quickly, she was shocked. She was just like, did that just come out? I said, it did just come out of your mouth, and I wrote it down because you responded so quickly that I believed that that was the truth,
Yep.
right? She didn't have to stop and think
Intuition.
about it.
Hmm.
So if you're having, if sitting down and having a hard conversation with yourself is difficult, there's other ways
Yes.
around finding a space and how to ground. I mean, you can name what you're feeling without even trying to create excuses for it, right? Just name it. What is it that I'm feeling? Sit with it for a while. It might be uncomfortable, but sit with it. Just let it go through your mind, body, soul aspect and really understand, should I be putting much energy towards this? Maybe not. Um, give yourself a voice. Don't let people ever take that voice away from you. Ask for help. That's the hardest one, is to
Hmm.
ask for help. People, including myself, don't know how to ask for help. And when
It's the
we
most
do, we think
important
we
thing.
owe that person the world.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but just sitting with your emotions sometimes is enough for you to realize this isn't worth it. This isn't worth it. I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I'm just getting in my own head. I'm getting in my own way. I got these feelings. Let's just navigate through them and we'll move on. And sometimes it's all it really takes for me to realize that I'm challenging myself for absolutely no reason at all.
Hmm. And not every thought requires a belief. You know what I mean? Not every thought needs its full acknowledgement and to be ran with. Sometimes the
Right.
thoughts just need to be heard and being like, okay, is this conducive to the situation? And
Right.
really evaluating the thought is really, really important. And I like how you were speaking about naming the emotion. Like, I'm pissed off right now, or I'm really angry. In those moments, what I personally like to do is, if say I'm like, I'm pissed off, I'm feeling really angry, and this person's really making me mad, I'm just sitting with that as a full grown woman. Okay, I'm human. Um, I have to sit with that and be like, okay, view myself as a little kid. Where was the moment when? Where was the moment when? Because when people outside of us are triggering us, it's giving us an opportunity to see where it is that we are avoiding ourselves
Yep.
that need attention. And usually it's childlike stuff as to why we're warranting allowing people maybe to take a lot of our attention or our security, right? Whether it's the people pleasing or just, man, I really don't like that that person said that my outfit looks stupid today. Well, the true peace is when no other person or experience outside of you gets your energy like that. You just know that it's their own experience, it's their own reflection of what they just need to heal through. Because we have three different emotions that we can lead with, right? We've got love, fear, or hate. And those are all very real emotions that everybody on this planet experiences. And we're all allowed to have those moments of allowance in those, whether it's hate or fear, but we don't need to stay sitting there. Just like with spiritual bypassing, we can't always just stay in a state of just love because we still need to understand where the fear and the hate was residing from. But what we can do is we can approach it with love by giving ourselves grace as we go through and
Yeah.
allow those experiences to come up.
I think most of us could probably learn quickly through some practice that you can turn hate into fear or
Oh,
fear into hate, right? So if I'm hating something, what is it that I'm fearing? Because it's not necessarily that I'm hating that person, but I'm fearing having that conversation with
mhm.
that person. And
Oh,
when you can use spirituality as a way of being a companion to healing, it could be very supportive and it could help you do things in a way that feel very magical and very appropriate. But when you use it as a shield to just protect yourself, that's not going to work. That's that band aid on that cut that's bleeding and needs stitches. Like,
yeah.
you need to be very smart and in tune and understand and be honest with your emotions and your feelings to be able to get through these processes.
Mhm. Like being your own doctor.
Yeah.
What diagnosis can I give myself right now? I'm feeling anxious and tightness in my chest. I know I'm having rushing thoughts of negative that are limiting me right now. Like those moments are real. And that's nervous system regulating too. And where is it coming from? So when you were mentioning about the fear and the hate, there's a spectrum of like the emotional system, of what is it? Authenticity, I believe, is the top. And I believe the bottom one is hatred or fear,
Mm.
one of them. but still, same spectrum. And if you want to look at, if we're looking at colors and everything else, what happens when they're off? When they come together, they integrate another color, correct?
Yeah.
Just like the color wheel. So, just an example of that, when you're looking at those spectrums, how can we come and integrate them together instead of trying to avoid because it's uncomfortable?
Right.
Because you will get made to be more uncomfortable because patterns and cycles of life exist in everything. So they're going to repeat themselves. The faces just are going to look different. But we're going to have a new level of awareness that's going to happen. Like, for instance, when I lost my mother and then I lost my father, the cycle that was coming really big for me was the fact that I didn't have an emotional safe space to unpack with my mother, and then everything that led up all the way to with my father. You see what I'm saying? So there was a whole process of understanding, and even understanding the depths of my father's life that unfolded from my mother's passing, right? To that point that if somebody were just to tell me, it's going to be okay, you're going to be great, love and light, it's wonderful, don't worry about it, I wouldn't have had that real understanding and wisdom and knowledge that I found along the way of how it started from when my mother passed and my father. Like, I've healed so much since my father's passing that I'm so grateful for. And was it ugly? Oh yeah, I cried in front of everybody. I lost my shit all the time. There's shows out there of the podcast, but am I ashamed of it? Absolutely not, because I don't come on this podcast and ask for vulnerability and not give it. Because I feel that the more vulnerable and uncomfortable conversations that we chose to have this platform for, me, Tina, and now Stephanie, is because we want to bring that awareness so that way you can move with conscious choice and conscious living, instead of thinking that this is the only way.
Mhm. It's when you talk about authenticity, it's hard because we're told to be our authentic self, and not everybody likes our authentic self. And I have had so many conversations with people to say, well, that's just who she is. That is her. Like, right, wrong, or indifferent, that is who she truly is. Well, I can't work with her. Well, did you have a conversation just to share with her where where you're kind of like rubbing, the rubber hits the road, and then those sparks are starting to fly, and you're just like, I can't do this. I'm like, because she is a very, very receptive individual. Have a conversation just to let her know how you're perceiving the way she speaks to you. And
Hmm.
I said, and a true authentic individual will understand I'm not a flavor for everybody, right? We're
Hmm.
not meant to be, or this world, we'd all be robots. But take somebody for who they truly are, and if you're struggling with that, and there are things that are making it hard to have a conversation, that's the signal to have the conversation.
Yep.
Like, if you're sitting with it and you're not sure how to manage it, no one else is going to get you through it but yourself, with that courageous conversation to be able to say, Nicole, you're a really nice person. However, when you say, I don't know, love and light, this is how it makes me feel. Oh my God, I never even realized that you could associate that with something like that. I am so sorry. I totally respect that. Like, people just don't realize the what how much words can cut, but also how they can heal.
Always. And I feel like if it's coming from a place of genuine honesty, like if you may not be articulating it the best, own that too. Say, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't think I'm gonna, like, I want to be able to be honest and transparent with you. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to unload it the best, but I want you to know this is how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, I know I every day, living authentically is magical. It really, really is. But we can still fall back into people pleasing or other mentalities that can just happen, right? But that's where those conversations can come in because if, say, I'm living authentically and say I triggered Tina, then there might be an opportunity of where there might be something that is living out of alignment within Tina from being able to see that authentic truth in me. Does that make sense in how I shared that?
Hmm.
So again, an opportunity to be able to reflect on um, what is it that I'm kind of bypassing right now that's needing and warranting my attention.
Yep. I'm just paying attention. Behind me, I have this picture.
You just froze. Oh no. She will be right back, everybody. She just froze for a second. Maybe because her mom and dad wanted to make sure you guys could all read the screen. So while she is frozen, it says, love your family, be thankful and thoughtful, be kind to yourself, slow down, spend time outside, give others your time, be patient, listen more than you speak.
My back.
Um, oh,
Can,
I think she's coming back. There, I
can you
think you're
hear me?
back. Yep, I was almost to the
Okay.
last line of the board.
So 4 words: slow down, be patient. They're the largest words on that plaque.
Love it.
I've had that for years. Just looking at it now, hit me.
See? And the divine always has messages all around us, constantly communicating with us when we can quiet ourselves and become present. You know, it sounds silly, but that's why it's such a gift, guys. Because when we are present in this moment, because
Yep.
that's the first time that I fully read that board was reading it to you guys, and I was like, I kind of like where that's going. So, ooh, and in this moment, Tina's reflection time.
Tina's reflection time. Something is okay. All right. So as usual, we start by taking a deep breath. We let our shoulders drop and let our jaw soften. And just notice what emotion is sitting closest to the surface right now. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to make it look pretty. Just acknowledge it. Say to yourself, this is what's here, and I'm allowed to feel it. Your humanity is not a problem to solve. It's a doorway, one that leads you back to yourself again and again. You don't have to bypass anything today. You can meet yourself where you are, and that itself is a deeply spiritual act. So I challenge all of you, meet yourself where you are today. Timing of this conversation on a Monday is important. Mondays are hard for a lot of people. Um, People have to go to work. People have to remember who they are, what they do. The weekend's over. So um, I think just sitting with it and allowing yourself to meet yourself wherever you are today is the best advice I could give you.
Oh yeah, I thought that was perfect. And so Wednesday we will be back and we're going to be talking about spiritual warfare. And spiritual warfare, how it's really a battle that is often happening within, though it may look like it's happening without. But remember, our internal world is a reflection of our external world. So when emotions are avoided long enough, they don't disappear. They often become internal battles, and that is spiritual warfare. We will talk about it, the collective energy, the individual energy of spiritual warfare, as well as kind of the light, shadow, and growth. I always love to share that because in life we all experience light and shadow, but when we can see them both for what they really are, we can integrate our own growth and truth through that experience. And that becomes the tools in our tool belt for when life comes at us again to be able to integrate and look at it more from an opportunity standpoint. So, with that being said, beautiful souls, as I always say, you woke up today because your soul still has purpose on this planet. So, please continue to go out there and live it authentically true to you. Love and light, beautiful souls.
Have a great